5 million. Leave my son alone. Mrs. Thompson fixed me with a sharp stare. I still firmly shook my head. She sneered, saying I was pretending to be innocent. Then, like a mantra, she listed the differences between me and her son, as if I wasn't good enough for her son. I secretly laughed at her misunderstanding, slowly correcting her. 5 million, after tax. The day after, I became a dainty wife and heroine. My boyfriend Daniel, the male lead who was supposed to be mine alone. Unexpectedly, he went to take care of the female lead, Emily. My heart was overjoyed. I could finally get away from this tyrant's control, so I happily started packing my bags. Unexpectedly, Daniel suddenly knelt in front of me, like an abandoned dog. His eyes were full of pleading. He kept saying, "Let me explain. It wasn't my fault that night. My mother drugged me. That's why I mistook Emily for you, you know. I value you like my life. If you leave, you'll take my life." The familiar PUA routine made me sick to my stomach. I forced myself to endure the discomfort. Why did the original heroine fall for this? She worked like a dog for the Thompsons for 5 years. She didn't even get a marriage certificate. She was really stupid. Listen carefully. I fought against my parents for 5 whole years for you, because it was you. I feel that it was all worth it. But now, are you going to renege on our promise? His words were like poison coated in sugar, sweet on the outside but deadly on the inside. In the past 5 years, Daniel had not only obtained a master's degree from a prestigious university, but had also taken over most of the family business. He was handsome. His fame even surpassed that of the popular stars. He was like an eagle spreading its wings and soaring high into the sky. And the original owner, she had dropped out of school to get pregnant. She only had a high school education responsible for his daily life, and also facing all kinds of pressure from the family. In the end, because of 2 miscarriages, it caused her to be unable to bear children again, just like a canary in a cage, lost its freedom and the sky. Daniel, enough. These 5 years you have gained fame and fortune. What have I got? Don't even think about tying me down with a flimsy line of love. I quit. I'm like a runaway horse. Dumped Daniel. Grabbing her suitcase, she rushed out. As she opened the door, she ran into Emily's radiant face. She shouted, "Sophia, you're being ungrateful. Daniel has done so much for you. You should stop now." She spoke with menace and contempt. I didn't want to deal with her. I grabbed my suitcase and tried to leave, but she suddenly grabbed my arm. It was like a vine wrapping itself around me. She said, "You want to leave, and leave the Thompson family's belongings behind." Damn. Sophia has lived a pampered life for many years. The clothes on her body and the shoes on her feet were all bought by Daniel. Now I'm being asked to return them all. Isn't it just asking me to leave naked? I looked back at Daniel. He was already sitting on the sofa. He silently consented to this happening. That look in his eyes seemed to say, "See where else you can escape to." I adjusted my expression a little. I smiled at Emily. There was a hint of sharpness in that smile. "Fine. Let's settle the score for all these years." I sat on the sofa opposite Daniel and Emily. Daniel still didn't say a word. His silence weighed heavily on my heart like a dark cloud. His attitude was very firm. He insisted that I bow my head. I pretended not to understand. I asked Mr. Thompson, "How much do you think you're worth?" Before Daniel could say anything, Emily looked at me with disbelief. "Are you stupid? The Thompson Group is the richest in New York. Daniel's worth more than 10 billion. Okay, then I think Mr. Thompson's children are worth at least 10 million each. 2 of them is 20 million. There are a lot of rich families in this area. A nanny's salary is at least $1 million a year. 5 years is 5 million. 25 million. Is that enough to buy this suit? Although my suit is also a designer brand. It doesn't even add up to $1 million. I said this just to see Daniel's face, which was as black as the bottom of a pot. Listen, I'm only saying this for your own good. Without me, you have nothing. Daniel's words were like the cold tongue of a snake, trying to wrap itself around me. Do I need to be more direct? You have no qualifications and no skills for survival in this society. Come back to me. Let me support you. Wouldn't that be nice? His eyes were full of menace, as if I had become fish for him to slaughter. Besides, you're just a woman. His words were like a sharp saw, trying to cut through my backbone, but I stood like a pine tree, standing straight. Don't underestimate anyone. 3 months later, I want you to kneel and beg me like you did just now. I avoided his angry eyes, dashingly turned around and left. When I reached the door, I suddenly remembered something and returned to Daniel. There was a little more expectation in his eyes. "I'm glad you've come to your senses." I'll pretend that nothing happened. I ignored him. I took 200 yuan out of my pocket and slapped it on Daniel's chest. It was like swatting a pesky fly. This is for all the nights you've spent with me. But your technique is still a bit rusty. You need to practice more. Sophia, you. Daniel's words were drowned out by his anger. I ignored the two piercing stares behind me. I shook my hair and walked away with style. At that moment, I felt like I had become my own hero. I was still basking in my glory. But then I was suddenly awakened by the cold wind on the street. The cold wind felt like a knife. It made my whole body ache. If I had asked for more compensation before, I wouldn't be freezing on the street now. Up ahead, a small electric scooter stopped in front of me like a savior. The woman on the scooter was wearing a helmet, with a cold expression, but she was like a ray of sunshine in the middle of winter. When I saw her face, I remembered. The original owner had a good friend at university called Lily. I had no choice. I had to get on the electric bicycle and return to her place. Her room wasn't big, but it was decorated warmly, like a warm harbor. Lily, where am I going to sleep tonight? I asked her pitifully. The sofa. Her tone was still as cold as ever, but in the end, she added a bed and quilt for me in the bedroom. Lily, you're so kind. If it weren't for you, I would have been sleeping on the street tonight. I hugged her tightly. My tears wouldn't stop flowing. She pushed me away. Her cold expression softened. It was like the melting snow in spring. You still believe in love? Never again. Sigh. All those stories about overbearing CEOs falling in love with me, there's no one more reliable than a best friend. I was really overwhelmed with emotion. When you were with Daniel, I already said that he was selfish. Lily vented about Daniel angrily. I didn't fall asleep until midnight. I had saved a true friend for the original owner. This feeling was like finding a lost treasure. I stayed at Lily's for half a month. Every day, I received those annoying text messages from Daniel. Emily also kept looking for opportunities to pick a fight. I was like the clever fox. I had long since seen through their scheme. That day, she messaged me to meet her at a cafe. Lily was worried about me and urged me not to go. I gave her a gentle pat on the shoulder, smiled and asked if we should start a photography company together. Just the two of us. Right now, this idea was like a seed awakened by the spring breeze. It took root in my heart. I had long wanted to start a company and had been thinking about it. Now Emily has offered to send money my way. How could I refuse? It feels like a gift from the heavens. It's beautiful. Walking into the private room of an upscale coffee shop, I find that it's not Emily waiting there. It's Daniel's mother. She's covered in jewelry. She sits elegantly by the window sipping tea, her posture like that of a proud peacock. When she sees me knock and enter, her eyelids lift slightly. Her eyes are full of contempt, as if I were an intruder in her territory. Hello, Auntie. I pretended to be well-behaved and greeted her. Old coffee. It needs to be brewed with Blue Mountain water to be of a decent quality. If it's not, something else has been added. I feel dirty even when I pour it into the trash can. Her words were like knives. They wanted to hurt my self-esteem. I obediently took the coffee from her hand. I poured it into the trash can next to her. I accidentally got some on her clothes. It left a mark. Auntie, let me wipe it off for you. I picked up the rag next to me and wiped it several times on her silk skirt. She ran after me. Frightened, she screamed. Like a frightened rabbit. That's enough, you ill-mannered boy. She shouted angrily. Mrs. Thompson couldn't stand it anymore. I glanced at her, put down the rag, returned to the table and sat down, and poured herself a cup of coffee. The coffee was as clear and calm as her mood. She straightened her clothes, put on her haughty face again, and sat down opposite me, like a victorious general. Say it, how can I get my son to leave me completely? Mrs. Thompson asked for $1 million. Sophia felt insulted by the amount. She refused without a second thought, and ended up with nothing. Now, I want more. My appetite is as big as a hungry lion. 10 million. I've made a high offer. What, Sophia? You think you deserve it? She said in surprise. What you should consider is not whether I deserve it, but whether your son deserves the 10 million. My words were like a sharp saw, chopping up her dreams. After that, I showed her the messages Daniel sent me begging me to stay. She let out a long sigh and took a sip of coffee. The coffee seemed to turn into bitter water in her heart. She sighed and said, 5 million. That's all I have saved up. After getting this money, Lily and I will have a ticket to a new life. We spent the next few days excitedly planning for the future. We spent a few months carefully selecting a location to renovate an office and recruit employees. Finally, we built a company that looked presentable. It looked like a rising star in the business world. but Daniel and Emily got engaged anyway. Emily sent me the invitation. The wedding photo of her and Daniel was glaring at me. They were smiling sweetly. It was like they were mocking me. Lily saw that I was in a bad mood. She secretly hid the invitation. She was afraid that I would feel even more sad if I saw it, but Emily wouldn't give up. She went straight to the company. She shoved the provocative wedding invitation into my hands. She said, "Daniel and I are getting married. You must come. Don't disappear on me like you did last time." She spoke with a hint of smugness. "Oh," I responded casually. "I've been busy with the company's IPO. I haven't had time to pay any attention to her." Her coldness took her by surprise. Emily's face immediately fell. She took out her phone defiantly. With a click, she took a photo of the two of us. Then she immediately posted the photo to her circle of friends, with a caption that read, "Sending invitations to old friends," but she didn't look very happy. In the photo, she was radiant. I, on the other hand, looked exhausted from working late into the night. My head bowed, I looked like a loser. This post was like a stone thrown into a calm lake. It immediately sent ripples through the water. My past with Daniel made our mutual friends start speculating about the relationship between the three of us. Within 3 minutes, there were a lot of nasty comments. "I, Emily, am so pretty. What's that person next to you? Why is he in the picture? Emily and Daniel are a perfect match. Who is this person, sisters? I guess she won't dare to go to the wedding. Ha ha ha." Seeing these nasty comments, I couldn't help but sneer. When Daniel and I were together, these people pretended to be quite serious, but now they're all hurling insults. They're like a bunch of ugly, mad dogs. I can't stand provocation. I immediately picked a comment to reply to. "You're wrong. I will definitely go to Emily and Daniel's wedding." The person saw this situation and didn't say anything else. Emily achieved her goal and left contentedly. They all want to laugh at me at the wedding. I'm going to turn this wedding into my stage. "Daniel, you should get to know the new Sophia." On the day of the wedding, Daniel's parents were very welcoming, but they ignored me, as if I didn't exist. Emily pretended to be warm and welcoming, but she took the opportunity to drag me over to her friends and sneered at me behind my back. Daniel quietly slipped me a note. It said, "You have one last chance. Bow to me. I can call off the wedding at any time." I gave him a look and threw the note straight into the trash. His eyes were firm. After taking their seats, the bride and groom walked up to the stage. Emily was crying her heart out, but Daniel couldn't help but keep looking at me. When the MC played the couple's touching video on the big screen, as per the usual procedure, the screen suddenly switched to a photo of Daniel and me. The whole audience went into an uproar. The corner where I was sitting immediately became the center of attention. Emily looked at me with a smug expression. It was like she was showing me off. I shook my head. How could she dare to use such a stupid method that would hurt both of them? I had no choice but to go on stage. Daniel gently took hold of my hand. He whispered, "I knew you still cared about me. Don't worry. I'll take care of everything." I shook his hand off. I said coldly, "Take care of everything." Then he became a love-struck fool. "I don't have time to mess around with you." After saying that, I took the microphone from the host. My voice was clear and firm. Everyone knew. I used to be Daniel's girlfriend, but we had already broken up long ago. I sincerely hope that he and Emily will be happy. The photos that were just released are indeed of Daniel and me, but I didn't secretly arrange them. I don't understand why Emily would behave in such a strange way. "Sophia, don't say anything. How could I possibly do such a thing at my own wedding?" Emily interrupted me in tears, pretending to be aggrieved. If I didn't know the truth, I might have been fooled like everyone else. Without further ado, let's watch the video. I waved helplessly. The photo of Daniel and me on the screen immediately turned into a video. In the video, Emily sent everyone away in the dressing room. Then she surreptitiously replaced the USB drive in the photographer's bag with her own. After the change, she looked around, afraid of being seen. At this point, everyone understood and looked at Emily with suspicion and contempt. Emily had wanted to take advantage of the situation, but instead she had lost out. She was so ashamed that she wanted to hide somewhere. As she fled in a panic, she accidentally stepped on her dress and fell heavily. Luckily, I reacted quickly and caught her wedding dress in time. Otherwise, she would have made a fool of herself. Mr. Thompson and Mrs. Thompson glanced at her in front of the media. They walked off the stage angrily. Daniel also helped her leave. In the end, I was the only one left on the wedding stage. I found the camera position, seized every shot, and started speaking loudly. Everyone may have been wronged at some point. At such times, we all need evidence to prove ourselves. Luckily, Dream Photography had recently launched a new 360-degree camera with no blind spots. Whether for security or commercial purposes, it could provide more protection for our future. That speech was a great success. Lily and I's company became a hot topic. It lasted for a week. The company received a large number of orders. We made millions in just a few days. All this success was due to my careful planning of photographers at the wedding company. Dream Photography had just emerged. The Thompson family became the laughing stock of New York. Daniel was completely furious with me this time. He threatened to completely shut down Dream Photography in the business world. The Thompson family has a very important position in the business world. Dream Photography is just a new upstart in their eyes. They can crush us with just one step. After he made his threat, no one in the business world dared to hire us again. Half of the company's employees left. Lily was dejected every day. It was as if she had lost her soul. That day, I discussed with her whether or not to sacrifice for the company and reunite with Daniel. She glanced at me. She took out a photo from her phone and showed it to me. In the photo, Daniel was embracing a young girl in a white dress. The girl looked, dressed, and had the same temperament as me. Her name was Amanda. She was in the last chapter of the original book, Daniel's replacement after the heroine died. She only appears in less than 5 lines throughout the book. I'm not dead yet. Daniel is in such a hurry to find a replacement. The plot is expected to get more and more complicated. This Amanda is really not easy to deal with. She just got together with Daniel and immediately posted intimate photos of the two on Instagram. Each one is also about me. It's like she's provoking me. The company is in an emergency situation right now. I can't take care of her. However, there are too many people following Daniel. His photos have been reposted countless times on all major social media platforms. The buzz is huge. What's more, one comment has received a particularly high number of likes. According to a source, Amanda and Daniel grew up together. He's with me only because I look like Amanda. That tone seems to imply I'm someone who intervenes in other people's relationships and is ungrateful. Come on, when Sophia and Daniel were together, Amanda hasn't even been written about yet. I know for sure that Daniel is behind Amanda's actions. Every day, I get hundreds of abusive messages on social media. Lily helps me explain myself online, but I can't fight against the army of trolls. The comments defending me are quickly drowned out. I don't care. An innocent person will always remain innocent. Public opinion is like the wind. I will stir up an even bigger storm. No one will care about what happened before. Daniel, since you're targeting me, I won't hold back. That day, I was busy sorting out the accounts at the office. Suddenly, a pretty face appeared in front of me. Hello, Sophia. Can I take my ID photo here? I looked up. It was Daniel's brother, Michael. I had met him once at the wedding. He was Thompson's illegitimate son. He was usually not well liked. He always acted timid and cowardly in front of others. But I understand. He is actually a dormant cheetah. I have read the original text. I know that he and Emily have joined forces. Their power is growing. In the end, they will become Daniel's biggest obstacle to taking over the family business. But in the end, he was too greedy. Daniel sent him to prison himself. Now the storyline is all messed up. To get rid of Daniel's control, Michael may be my best helper. Moreover, I still have a trump card. If I use it well, in the end, he and I will be the biggest winners in this business war. There's no need to pretend. We both know what the other is thinking. We worked really well together during the shoot. Afterwards, at the famous New York Chamber of Commerce, Michael got me an invitation. I made up an excuse and got in without a problem. If I can get a partner today, the company might be saved. I took a bottle of champagne and toasted everyone. But as soon as I mentioned the name Dream Photography, people avoided me like the plague. It was as if I were some kind of terrible thing. I hit a brick wall everywhere. So I sat alone at the table, drinking in silence. Suddenly, a few business owners came over to toast me. They asked, "You must be Amanda, Daniel's date tonight. You and Daniel make a great couple." One said, "Yes, please say a few kind words about our project this year." Another one chimed in as soon as they heard Amanda's name. They all raised their glasses. They came towards me like a tidal wave. I suddenly became the center of attention. Although I felt dazzling, I felt like I was on pins and needles. I panicked for a moment. I didn't know whether to cry or laugh. If I was introduced to the company's products at this time, wouldn't that be too embarrassing? If I missed this opportunity, the company might be like a shipwreck. It would never be able to rise again. I was torn between two conflicting emotions. Then Daniel's voice suddenly cut through the awkward silence like a bolt of lightning. Amanda just went to the bathroom. Why would anyone mistake her for anyone else? He put his arm around Amanda's waist and walked over to the group. It was like a declaration of ownership. Everyone's eyes immediately focused on the clothes Amanda and I were wearing. Their gazes were sharp as hawks eyeing their prey. I never would have guessed. We were wearing the same clothes. This coincidence came out of nowhere. It was like a bolt from the blue. It caught me completely off guard. We look so similar, and now we're wearing the same clothes. Everyone must think I'm copying her, competing for resources. Daniel actually came up with such a mean trick. It really makes me angry. Sophia, I don't want anyone else to wear the same clothes as my girlfriend. Please change. His words were cold as a knife. They made my heart feel cold. Change? I don't have anything else to change into. I bitterly laughed to myself. But on the surface, I had to remain calm. If Sophia doesn't have anything else to wear, I can ask the waiter to bring their work clothes. Amanda's words were a little smug. It was as if she were watching me make a fool of myself. Why do women have to make life difficult for other women? She said. Don't blame me for turning on you. I kept my emotions in check. I looked carefully at the face that looked so much like mine. His eyes were full of provocation and contempt. I remembered correctly. This dress was made to my measurements from last year, wasn't it? I wore it once before when I went to a charity event with Daniel. Why? Was Daniel that nostalgic? He didn't even buy Amanda a new one. My words were tinged with sarcasm. Her face immediately turned pale. Oh yes, the antique brooch Amanda was wearing. I accidentally broke the corner when opening a can. Doesn't it feel uncomfortable when you wear it? I continued to say a few more things. Her face turned even uglier. I still have things to do. I won't disturb your party. Goodbye. After I finished speaking, I turned to leave. There was a shocked sound all around. Amanda heard this. She immediately became the center of everyone's attention. She was so angry that her teeth were chattering, but there was nothing she could do. I was about to leave. Daniel suddenly grabbed my hand. His grip was so strong that it felt like he was trying to crush me. Then he turned to the others and said, "Sorry, everyone. I have some family business to attend to." The others tactfully left. Only Amanda remained standing. Her eyes were full of resentment. "You two," Daniel said coldly. Before he could finish speaking, Amanda obediently walked away, like a tamed pet. "How long are you going to keep this up? Just apologize to me. I can give you whatever you want." Daniel's words carried a threat. His eyes looked at her like an unruly toy. "How could I ever bow to you? Daniel, you have never treated me as an equal. What you give me is nothing more than charity. What I have achieved through my own efforts is real talent. You want me to be a pet and an accessory like Amanda? The old Sophia might have been able to do that, but the current me will never do it." My tone was very firm. There is no hesitation. In the eyes of many men, women are merely a means to an end, or a good mood tonic. They despise women, yet they cannot live without them. In order to tame women, they use love as an excuse. Poor men use sweet words to please them. Rich men spend money to win their hearts. In general, they only offer what they have in abundance. Women in the new era must first stand on their own 2 feet before they can break down the gender prejudices that have existed for thousands of years. I looked at him. My eyes were as cold as frost. He stared at me. His eyes were as cold as a snake's. "Fine, you don't want my help. Someone else will be lining up to do it. Don't blame me when I show no mercy. I'll be waiting to see the results." I sneered and turned to leave. Half a month later, Dream Photography officially went bankrupt due to financial problems. Daniel completely destroyed the last shred of affection we had for each other. His expression was fierce as a wolf. When we met again, we were sitting at the same table. The scene was absurd, like a play. Today, Mr. Thompson, the boss of Thompson Group, was as happy as a child. Michael had helped him clinch several big deals. If they could land the Kingsley Group business, the Thompson family would have a chance to become the richest family in the country. "Haha, Michael, you've finally come to your senses. Come, have a drink with Dad." Mr. Thompson couldn't stop smiling. He looked like he had found a treasure. "Dad, Sophia was the one behind it all. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to get these projects off the ground," Michael said modestly, but there was still a hint of pride in his eyes. These projects were originally Daniel's, but now they were Michael's credit. Since he didn't care about appearances, I didn't need to be polite. I looked at Daniel's ugly face and sneered inwardly. I never thought Sophia would be so talented in business. In the future, after you marry Michael, you must help me manage the Thompson group well. Mr. Thompson's tone was full of admiration and expectation. Mr. Thompson is too kind. I still have a lot to learn from you. I raised my glass and walked over. My face wore a warm smile. The whole scene was very harmonious. Only Daniel's face looked as ugly as a piece of charcoal. The Thompson family is very distant. Mr. Thompson now has a capable subordinate in Michael. He immediately demanded at the dinner table that Daniel give Michael half of the company he manages. Mr. Thompson spoke with determination. It was like an order. Daniel firmly disagreed. Using Michael's young age as an excuse, he fought back against Mr. Thompson. He was like a cunning fox, desperately trying to avoid the hunter's pursuit. The situation was getting more and more tense. I said, "Mr. Thompson, there's really no need to rush. Once Michael has closed the deal with Kingsley, it won't be too late for you to hand over the Thompson group to him." My words acted as a catalyst. They suddenly changed the stalemate, but Daniel wasn't happy. He gave me a glare. His eyes were as sharp as knives. "Sophia, you're not supposed to be here. When did Dad say he was going to give the Thompson group to him?" His tone was full of doubt and dissatisfaction. Michael stood in front of me, looking directly into Daniel's sharp eyes. Their eyes were like the flashing swords on a battlefield. Fierce confrontation. "Brother, yelling at a woman is no big deal. Didn't Dad say it? Thompson Group will be handed over to someone who is capable." Michael's tone was confident and firm. It was only then that Mr. Thompson said, "You can't even eat a meal properly. Michael is right. Thompson Group really needs someone capable to take care of it. You two brothers. Whoever can win the big order from Kingsley, I will hand over Thompson Group to whoever." After saying that, Mr. Thompson put down his chopsticks, turned around and left. That back image was as majestic as an emperor. In fact, he was the one with the best judgment. Kingsley Group is the richest man in the country, facing Thompson Group, a potential rival. They will not easily join forces. If a deal can really be reached, the market value of Thompson Group will multiply many times over. Its reputation will at least be on par with Kingsley. This is exactly what he has been pursuing his whole life. "Kingsley, just you guys." Daniel glanced at us, and then left. The figure looked like a defeated rooster. It looked very embarrassed. There were only two of us left in the room, Michael and I. He still looked at me with that ambiguous expression. It was as blurry as a light in the fog. Everyone had gone. "Stop pretending." I laughed. I laughed like a fox. I thought for a long time the only way to get rid of Daniel's oppression was to defeat him. So I decided to stand by Michael's side, pretend to be in love with him, help him deal with Daniel together. This plan was as clever as playing chess. He stroked my hair gently. His eyes were full of tenderness. It was as gentle as the spring breeze blowing across the lake. If I said, I really liked it, would you believe me? There was a sense of seriousness and expectation in his words. I haven't seen much sincerity, but I remember it very clearly. I can tell who is sincere, who is pretending. I can tell at a glance. I laughed. The smile carried a hint of mockery and disdain. For the first time, the way he looked at me flinched a little, but then he laughed too. His smile was as bright as the sun breaking through the clouds. "You didn't eat a single bite of the cake I baked, but you ate the one my brother baked for 5 years. I compared it with his. Is it really that bad?" There was a hint of self-deprecation and helplessness in his tone. "No, I tried it the night you defected. It's actually much better than your brother's. Let's just get down to business. No more beating around the bush." "How much can I get after winning?" I asked with a smile. That smile was like a cunning fox calculating its prey. His eyes suddenly lit up. They sparkled like stars in the night sky. "You mean Kingsley? You're confident, that's right. After this is done, I will control the photography industry in New York. You stay out of it. Let's sign a written agreement. Put it in black and white." I said this with a firm tone of voice, a resolute attitude. Okay. Not just the photography industry. I will give you my whole self," he said with a smile. That smile was as bright as a flower. Seeing that he insisted on using beauty to win my cooperation, I didn't want to disappoint him. I remembered that in the original story, Daniel was able to win Kingsley's business because Kingsley's daughter Amelia fell in love with Daniel at first sight. Daniel pretended to marry her in order to clinch the deal. Sophia was forced to become a third party. In the end, she couldn't bear it and committed suicide. This story is as sad as a tragedy, but Michael's appearance and temperament are not inferior to Daniel's at all, as long as I replace the protagonist in the story with Michael. The object of Kingsley's daughter's affection will also become Michael. This plan is like magic. The same snowy day, the same coat. Michael is standing under the ginkgo tree, handsome as the leading man in a Korean drama. The scene is beautiful like a painting. My plan is going exceptionally well. It's only been 3 days. Michael has already sent over the contract with Kingsley. I asked him why he wanted to leave the contract with me. He laughed. He said he was worried about Daniel pulling some kind of stunt. It's safer with me. I noticed that he had a lot of hickeys on his neck, so I joked, "You guys had a pretty wild night yesterday. Don't forget to invite me to the wedding." I'm half the matchmaker. He pretended to look pitiful. Sighing, he said, "Seeing that you're not jealous at all, I'm actually a little sad." I shrugged, saying, "Come on. You're already dating Kingsley's daughter, just be happy." His eyes darkened. They became deep immediately. He said, "In fact, we are the most suitable." "Isn't it so? I never asked you why you knew so much. You also never asked me why I suddenly wanted to take power from Daniel." I was shocked, in fact. "I know. Michael recently found out that his mother's death was related to Mrs. Thompson. It had been hinted at in the original text. But Michael is a very unpredictable person. I dare not sympathize with him, because once I get emotionally involved, I will want to get a response. Hoping for a person who is not loyal is like pushing oneself into danger. Things are developing in a positive direction. As long as Michael signs the contract in front of Mr. Thompson, the photography industry in New York will be mine and Lily's. That night, I had a long and strange dream. I dreamt that I had a car accident. I was lying in a hospital, a vegetable. Someone was tugging at my body, and they kept saying, "Give it back to me, give it back to me." I opened my eyes. I saw a pair of eyes that looked exactly like mine. They were staring at me. I was so scared that I tried to push her away with my hand, but I unexpectedly passed through her body. I had actually left my body. "Don't bother. I am the real Sophia, you are a fake," she said coldly. The female host returned. She took control of my body. At this critical moment, who can guarantee that a love-struck brain won't do something stupid? I floated over to Lily. No matter how I called out to her, she couldn't see me. This was unbelievable. I shouted with my last ounce of strength, but only Sophia could hear me. She slammed the door, keeping Lily out. Her eyes were full of determination. "I know all your memories. These days you actually treated Daniel like that. Do you know how much I love him? You even conspired with Michael to take advantage of Daniel's inheritance. I will never let you have what you want," she said angrily. After that, she took out the key and opened the safe with ease. She took out the contract. On the contract, Michael had not yet signed. As soon as Daniel's name was signed, all the Thompson family's property would belong to him. Everything I have worked so hard for would be for nothing. I hurriedly stopped her, trying to persuade her to understand. "Since you've returned, with my memories, you should know that Daniel's love is worthless. He just wants an obedient servant. You can't defy him, or he'll deal with you. As long as you hand over this contract, you can rely on yourself and Lily to make a name for yourself. What's wrong with being a strong woman? Career, I want it. Daniel will give it to me. With him, I have everything. If it weren't for you, he would have loved me forever." She screamed uncontrollably. "Sophia, what have you gained in the 5 years you've been with him? On the contrary, after leaving him, you have made good friends, gained experience, and your career has taken off. Aren't they better than being a parasitic plant that depends on others?" I patiently persuaded him. "That's enough. I don't need any of that. I just want Daniel's love," she said firmly. Her eyes shone with stubbornness. "I understand. There's no point in saying anything more." I silently followed her, watched her walk out the door, planning to go find Daniel, but before she could get into the car, a car suddenly rushed over, knocking her to the ground. She fell in a pool of blood. Still clutching the contract she was going to give to Daniel, she stared in disbelief at the eyes beneath the driver's cap. Those eyes belonged to Daniel. He must have heard that I had the contract and came up with this radical solution when his own interests are threatened. Even a woman he once loved, he can kill without hesitation. Daniel took the contract from Sophia. His face showed no mercy. Then, he got into his car and drove off, leaving behind a body in a pool of blood and an endless sense of desolation. The moment she closed her eyes, she finally understood. Men cannot be trusted. After she collapsed, everything went dark. Her consciousness gradually faded. Finally, she saw Lily sitting by the roadside, crying out for help. My eyes were getting blurry. I felt like a gust of wind. My body became transparent. I slowly disappeared into the air. "Goodbye, my good friend." I I whispered to myself, I just hope she can hear me. Don't forget to give Daniel the gift. That was my last thought when I woke up again. I found myself lying in an ICU bed, still holding the book, The Escape Guide for the Frustrated Wife. The doctors all said it was a miracle that I had recovered. After they congratulated me, I finally had some time to myself. I quickly opened the last part of the book. I was anxious to find out what was going on. I discovered that the contract Daniel had received was a fake. Or rather, the contract Michael had given me was a fake. He had never really believed in me. This made me wonder about the purpose of his giving me the contract. Was it just to attract Daniel's attention and make me his target? Did he deliberately tell Daniel that I had the contract? He wanted to monopolize the Thompson family's assets. That's unclear. The video of Daniel driving his car into Sophia was clearly captured on surveillance camera. The lawsuit over the fake contract was not over yet. He was taken to court by Lily. He was sentenced to life imprisonment. After Michael and Amelia got married, he always tried to play tricks, but he could never beat the Kingsley family. His scheme was quickly uncovered. Instead, Amelia fought back. In the end, he had to leave empty-handed. Due to Daniel's incident, the Thompson family did not let him go back. In the end, Michael was left on the streets. He had a nervous breakdown. He became insane. The Thompson family completely fell apart. Dream photography took its place. I heard that their boss, Lily, has superb photography skills. Everyone admires her. I flipped to the last page of the book. I saw the author's signature. Lily. I gently stroked those two words. Tears flowed like a flood, unstoppable. At that moment, a familiar voice came from the bed next door. Sis, don't be silly about love next time. I finally understood. My real name is Sophia. That time, in a moment of emotional impulse, I accidentally crossed the road and got hit by a car. I almost got my best friend Lily hurt too. Luckily, Lily and I are both safe and sound. Lying here together, all of this feels like a long, thrilling dream, but I know it's all real. I will cherish everything I have even more.